Agenda is the approval of the meeting minutes from February 21st and approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve those?
I can make a motion.
Thank you, Anthony.
I would second that.
Okay, thank
Brent.
you. Brent, I think I heard. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. And that motion carries. The second item on the agenda is an annual report presentation from Amy Baldwin from Ottertail County. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you. Claire's just gonna pop up a presentation here, I think. I believe Jill said she printed copies of the reports, summary reports at your table, at your chairs.
Got it.
Otherwise, I've got copies as well. All right, great. Thank you for having me here today. Again, Amy Baldwin from Ottertail County. I'm the Community and Economic Development Director. Clara.
Is that not working?
Oops, now I ended up over here. All right, so just to start, I wanted to share just a reminder that, we don't work within a silo. Within our community and economic development work at Ottertail County, we have it structured in 4 large categories of how we do our work. The first being on the map, and that's really putting Ottertail County literally on the map as a destination for new residents, for visitors, and we work with a lot of partners on this within the county. So Ottertail Lakes Country Association, our nonprofit, historically tourism partner, but really they work well beyond that now in the last 5 to 7 years. And we know that when folks look at a place to vacation, have a positive visit to a place, that has what's called a halo effect for someone to consider opening a business, starting a business, or relocating permanently to that location. So really important from that workforce realm with that live work messaging that they really push out. The second area, which is a lot of the work that I'm particularly focused on from our community development agency's lens, is what we reference as infrastructure. So that's beyond roads and bridges and sewer and water and that traditional kind of core infrastructure, but the infrastructure that people need to live and work and thrive in a region. So our housing, our childcare, broadband, those sort of things. So that's what I'll mostly be talking about today. But also we're doing more work in that employer resources. Again, from a workforce lens, we need to make sure we're supporting being able to promote opportunities, supporting our employers in trainings and connecting and making some of those connections. Youth workforce navigation is one of those areas, and I'll talk about those today as well. And then finally, welcoming communities. When we do this work to make sure we have the things people need to live and work and thrive here, that we've put Ottertail County on the map with them, and they're here, that they're welcomed and supported as they're in our communities. So working to expand some of that, Fergus Falls is a partner in the U of M extension work that we'll be doing this calendar year, starting some preliminary work, I think, this spring, and along with New York Mills. So those are the 2 communities that we're piloting and how that looks and works to see if it's an effective model to support becoming a more welcoming community. Okay, I don't know what I'm clicking here. Okay, I can do it this way. All right, so I talked about infrastructure, and certainly I've been here before talking about the housing investment efforts that we've been leading at the county. Looking at 2022 as a snapshot, we did see 499, didn't quite hit that 500 mark with the units we tracked, but new and rehabbed units within Ottertail County. Of those, 444 were new units, and that's a 13% increase from 2021. So even in the continued challenging environment for construction, we did realize an increase of new units, and that's throughout Ottertail County, both single family, multifamily, including lakeshore properties, et cetera. So all new units. And then also 55 rehab units that were substantial rehabilitations. We know that's an underrepresented number because a number of our communities don't permit rehabs. They don't do permits in that way, as well as our rural areas. If someone does a rehab, there is no building permit. Ultimately, might get caught up with the assessment process, but that's pretty hard to track in our rural areas without a permit process. So we know, again, that's underrepresented, but those new units are pretty well tracked and counted by our communities and within our township areas. We continue to offer the property tax rebate program and had 87 applications last year. And that program will run this year and next year. And then our policymakers have indicated they don't have an intention to extend it beyond that, that it was really to meet that time frame of the big build, which will also end in 2025 as far as the initiative. We'll certainly be continuing to focus on investment in housing, but the kind of the program itself, the broader program, will be suspended at that time. So combined, well over $100 million of housing investment. And we also wrapped up the housing needs analysis, which I think was the last time I was here about a year ago. I presented that data for the Southwest market and some of the needs, particularly around our senior affordable rental and entry-level single family still being strong need in that area. The county commissioners also did this last year, dedicate $2 million for additional housing programs, which I talked about the last time I was here as well. Okay, Clara. Oops, there we go. It just clicked on. I don't know what okay. All right, so looking at some specific projects that we were involved with from the county's perspective. We had a couple in Battle Lake. We had a tax abatement we supported for some rental townhomes. And then in Hidden Meadows, which was an existing single-family subdivision, the city had contacted us to try to spur some of that entry-level single-family product there. So we are in active construction right now with 2 single-family homes and a third one planned to start this spring. And that was in partnership with funding from Minnesota Housing. So we received the construction financing interim loan for actually building them. So we're acting as the developer. And then also value gap and affordability funding to get a homeowner into that home at a price point that works for them. So that was our first entree into new construction. So it's been going well. 1 unit sold, the other has a pending purchase agreement, and then we'll start construction on the 3rd unit. So looking at how we can model that in other communities as well.
Whereabouts is that, Amy?
Hidden Meadows is when you come in on 78. It's on the right.
Right.
So there was the new rental townhomes that were built. And then immediately north of there, there was a single family subdivision, kind of right behind Dairy Queen.
Right, okay, thanks.
Yep. And that subdivision was started, I think it was like 15 years ago by the city. And these are some lots that were remaining in that subdivision, why they were wanting to get it moving and kind of wrap it up. At New York Mills, there's an apartment project that's planning to break ground, and we've committed to tax abatement for that project. In Pelican Rapids, the highway garages have had some consolidation and a new construction for a new highway garage. So the old site, we are working towards a redevelopment of that for a housing project. It's they just moved out like last week, so we're planning, but probably a 2024 project for that one. And then the HRA is working in the city of Dalton on some land that the city owns there for affordable senior rental, looking at 2 triplexes. Been having some great conversations with Otter Tail Power on how to make those efficient to operate and keep that operational cost low for the residents, as well as the HRA, which will own and operate those units as we go forward. Again, looking at that to be a model of bringing the scale and a product that has been demonstrated as high demand for that senior rental population. And then just a couple of stats on the federal housing programs that we administer, the Housing Choice, the voucher program, which excludes Fergus Falls, and then the public housing program, which excludes both Fergus and Perham by jurisdictional designation. But the point of those two is there just is not the units to meet the demand, and I'm sure that's reflective in Fergus Falls as well. That a lot of folks on wait lists and in the voucher program, they might get a voucher to help support their housing, but there isn't an available unit for them to move into. Okay, this mouse is gonna be the death of me. Well, we go this way this time.
Just gives us a minute.
Sure. Process, right? Is it, that's right. It's the pause and process. All right, so shifting off housing to another area, broadband or digital access and equity. The county provided matching funds in the, around $2.8 million to support two fairly large-scale projects by area providers. One, Park Region, which is the North Fergus Falls project, so that'll be a number of townships, Ardall, Freiburg, Fergus Falls Township, Buse. Gonna miss a couple, but it's a fairly large scale. Over 1,000 households will be served with that project. Those homeowners, Park Region was successful in securing a state grant to help make that project move forward, along with the county's match money, as well as those townships that I mentioned. Many of them committed funding to help make this project a reality. And so that's moving forward. They plan to start construction yet this year. And then another project was awarded state funds for RBIG, and that's more in the east, kind of Henning, and then Parker's Prairie areas, some kind of patchwork areas that were missing access in those areas. Still a lot of need out there, but this will really serve a lot of new households within the county. So combined, those two projects will be well over $11 million. So a lot of progress happening there. As well, completed the installation of 2 smart rooms last year, in addition to 8 more that were worked on the prior year, but one at Fergus Falls, that one particularly at the Historical Society, and then one in Henning. And with our Lead for America, American Connection Corps Fellow that we've been hosting at the county, we've been able to pilot some senior digital literacy workshops, one just right here at the Senior Center, a series of workshops to help with in that case, that population working to make sure they're safely and effectively using the internet as well as their devices, understanding some tech support. File management was a big piece of questions, like they got something, they don't know where it, might not have known where it went and where it was being saved. So we're using that information to help inform up the state's digital equity plan. There is a large amount of federal funding that'll be coming down to the state of Minnesota. And so all of this work, whether it's fiber access, work we've done over the last few years, the senior digital workshop training, the laptop distribution, the just a lot of the different things that we know are still issues to help inform how we might be able to continue to advance those. Which one will work this time?
Neither of them.
Here. Oh, it went backwards. Just do it this way. Okay, so shifting gear to another area of focus, childcare, and we've been working closely with Clara and the RCCIP work that the city has been doing as well. But we were fortunate to receive funding from West Central Initiative to help contract with 2 part-time project managers who have expertise in the childcare arena, and they've been working one-on-one with either providers who might be looking to expand or need support in their business operations side, or with new providers who are looking to start up and make sure they're connected to available resources. Again, another area that there's a lot of resources out there right now, and it's a lot to keep track of, and so it's good to have someone just to even bridge them to that next resource and understands where they're coming from as a provider in what their need is, and then pairing them with the best resource or resources to help them move forward. So we've been able to expand that this year as well and continue that work with those project managers. And then we developed a pilot grant program that in 2022 supported 12 providers with direct funding, both startup and existing providers, and have expanded that now in 2023 as we were awarded a deed grant, the Child Care Economic Development Program, and that will help expand that program we've done 5 grants to providers in the Fergus Falls area to date.
Can I
And then
ask a question, Amy?
Yes,
Sorry.
yes.
What was provided to those childcare providers? Like that, the 12 that,
dollar amounts, or I mean,
no, just for what
oh,
purpose
what
or
did
what
they
were
use
the,
those funds?
yeah,
Sure.
how could they use those?
Yeah, so there was a lot of variability. It was really defined by the provider where their need was. We did everything from new carpet
Yeah.
in their we know the wear and tear and the cleaning that happens on that carpet, to new toys and curriculum,
Okay.
to just replenish and refresh what they're offering in their programming.
Yes.
One individual finished out some of their basement so they'd have more space to provide their programming.
Mm-hmm.
So physical improvements to their locations, some security systems. That was a couple of those that we provided. So it really varied, and we worked with them to just really make sure they knew it was open to where their need was. And so it could be everything from pure supplies, to
Yeah.
consumable supplies, I guess, things like that, to more physical investments. Yep.
Nice, broad scope.
Yeah, it is. And it can be paired, it does require a one-to-one match, but that match can be covered with other grant funds. And so we did keep it, again, trying to free up. We know there isn't a lot of excess cash in those business operations for providers, and so wanted to keep that option open too. So they don't have to put their own cash in when we know, again, very tight, being impacted with rising food costs and all the things that we're all dealing with as well. We've maintained overall our provider capacity in Otter Tail County, and so that's something that we're thankful for, because there's a lot of neighboring counties who are down 20, 30, even 50% capacity to where they were pre-pandemic. Stevens County is one that, and they took a more aggressive approach and are building childcare. They're building pods, standalone buildings for providers, and because they had such a challenge to deal with. So, any other questions on childcare?
I just got a quick question.
Yeah.
With the COVID that happened a couple years ago when it was in full swing, I mean, how did that affect did we lose a bunch or?
Did not.
Okay.
We somehow stayed stable. We're actually up from that number right now to the highest number of family care licensed providers that our current licensor, Lisa Spangler, at the county has seen in her career.
Okay, that's
And
good.
so, but there's still a huge need. We say that just in that we're stable and even increasing slightly, so that's great. But
Okay.
still a lot of need as we hear from all over the county.
And I feel like some of the reason that we kept so many providers over the pandemic is that they were receiving pretty direct support both from the county and from cities who used CARES funding to help providers get the cleaning supplies and things that they would need. So there were programs that were put in place that I think.
So they weren't hit like, some of the small businesses where they had to shut their doors.
They were not required. They had requirements should kids have gotten sick, and the protocols that they would have to follow based on, what was happening with COVID at the time, but they were not required to
Okay,
close.
that's good.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
argue, personally, watching it, it was incredibly stressful for them. And I'm surprised that they did not kind of burn out, because every day the rules changed. Okay, well, if this kid was exposed, then you have to shut the whole thing down. Well, if they were only there for 15 minutes, then this one can stay. Well, all the siblings have to go. Now just the one has to go. So it was it was a very stressful environment, and I know if my provider felt so much responsibility to try to keep these kids
Well, that's
safe.
kind of like when my wife did daycare. You get one kid that comes in with lice, boy, that just messes
Okay.
with messes with your whole business.
Yeah, good
Public-
example.
Public health at the county did a lot of outreach directly to providers, so they were able to kind of
Yeah.
help them navigate a lot of of those issues. So there
That's true.
were good support networks that were in place, and I think we're seeing the outcome of that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Thanks, Clara. Yeah.
On the Stevens County thing, who owns the infrastructure on their model?
The
The
county.
county purchased the, okay.
Yep. So the land, so I think they assembled some land. The city might have owned some of the lots, but the county is building and funding the pods, and then they are right now selecting their providers to go into those locations.
Okay.
But they're built that they could be basically they're not a tiny home, but a small home, so it has the full bathroom, sleeping area, et cetera, so that in the future, should it not be needed for childcare, that it could be converted to a housing unit.
Interesting. Okay,
Yep.
thanks.
And the county will employ the child care providers?
No, they will lease the space.
Thank you.
All right, so shifting over to employer strategies and OTC Works, that's our kind of broad program overview. That's the O being opportunities, training, and connections. As we think about, again, our role in supporting these areas, we know what we kind of look back to childcare. We didn't feel it was our role to own and operate childcare, to construct childcare spaces that works maybe for other counties or other jurisdictions, but wasn't in our area. Did the same look for how to support our employers and our workforce needs, and thought about where is the applicable role for us. And so one area that we advanced pretty extensively last year was our youth workforce navigation, and we've been able to contract with an independent contractor who's leading that program work. That's Amy Johnson. And in developing that program, it helped inform a grant request to the state of Minnesota for a youth skills training grant. And we were awarded $100,000 through the state that's been able to help continue and expand that programming. We also launched the K-12 Navigator, and that is a online kind of matchmaking solution for employers to register as what opportunities they have to offer for our youth looking at career exploration. So whether that's a tour of your facility, a classroom speaking engagement, internships, to donating supplies to a class that might be available, the kind of the whole spectrum. So employers can indicate what types of jobs and what areas they're willing to engage with youth on. And then our either students directly, guidance counselors or work-based learning coordinators, whoever it might be at the school district or in a household, if anyone gets access, open access, to search for who within a radius of a zip code would be available to provide a certain career experience for a student who might have an interest in some area. So we were able to launch that. We have about 55 employers registered. I think that's ticked up a little bit since year end throughout the county, so that we can, again, pair youth looking for career exploration. And then we're also, another strong area is our career pathway field trips, and we were scheduled to have one last Friday, and but we have weather impacted that one, and so that one's being rescheduled. That was for construction trades, and we are doing IT on Wednesday, which includes Otter Tail Power, and so those are invited for any school district within Otter Tail County, and we, with that grant, offer support for transportation costs, so any of the busing or student transportation, as well as substitute costs if because the chaperone or whoever's coming with the students requires the school to get a sub, we cover that cost. So really at no cost to the school, we provide lunch and all expenses during those field trips. So those are some recent ones. We have done also manufacturing, automotive, agriculture, and there's one more. Healthcare, of course. So those have been throughout the county, different employers, and I think all of our school districts have participated in at least one of those field trips. So this data point is for year-end 2022. So since then, we've done a few more and have some more planned for that. We also have a steering committee that meets quarterly to help inform this work from employers and schools and other partners who are engaged in this work. So moving away from the youth side, we've developed an in-demand skills training partnership with M-State. We offered leadership training that is underway right now. Had great response to that, where we offered a 50% discount for participation, and then we're looking at some other in-demand areas like welding and nursing assistant, and trying to figure out, again, what role we could play to help support CDL, so commercial drivers, which are a hot demand as well. And then we've provided some matching funds for 5 employers across the county to participate in a racial equity dividend index, which is a statewide survey. And then each employer received a lengthy report custom to their organization. So those are our workforce efforts. Questions on that? And just have a couple more slides. This does give. Oh. Each time it's different. You don't know how it's going to explain. All right. We also had a business resilience coaching program last year. This was kind of a one-time opportunity with some funding that we had available, but we provided 153 hours of coaching and technical assistance to businesses and nonprofits from throughout the county, a number of them in the Fergus Falls market. And then as they went through that coaching, they were able to access some what we called Make It Happen grants. And so some funding, direct funding to help implement an opportunity that was identified for the organization. And that was in partnership with the Small Business Development Center with funding from the state of Minnesota. And we also partnered to provide bilingual entrepreneurship workshops in Pelican Rapids. We did have some Fergus Falls individuals participate in that. That was a first-time endeavor. We had a local business coach, and then had translation services available. The whole thing was translated live. And then we continued certainly to support our businesses through Otter Tail Lakes Country. So we try to get the word out. We do presentations like this with different groups. Get there. All right, and host events as well. So we held a large housing summit and a workforce summit last year. We'll be doing the housing summit again this late fall. And then we do quarterly virtual workforce convenings. The next one is this Thursday at 9 a.m. if you're interested in that. If you're not getting those and are interested, we can get you on the distribution list. And then we do quarterly housing convenings and certainly other media and communication efforts that go out on a regular basis. So going forward into next year, we will have pretty much consistent focus. We'll be continuing big build and housing investments, we know there's still very, very high demand for housing across the spectrum. Working with our communities to advance those both housing and childcare opportunities, and then expanding our workforce programming and leveraging our funds with outside funds. I mentioned a couple of state grants. We really work to leverage our local resources with other programs to advance our efforts. Happy to answer any questions.
The business resilience program.
Yeah.
How do you vet groups? I mean, how do you decide who gets to go do that?
Sure.
Or should go through that? Is it based on loan workouts or something? Or?
No, not. We do have an application process where they have to express their desire to participate and where their need is. And then we had a community-based review panel that determined who moved forward in each funding round. So we did 3 different rounds of applications so people could apply, and then they needed to be selected into the process. Yep. And we had local businesses and one of the SBDC advisors, business advisors, that helped make those decisions.
Thanks.
Any other questions for Amy?
Great. Well, really appreciate the city's partnership, Clara. We were just at a childcare group today. Any way that the county can help partner or advance our shared priorities, we're happy to do that. So just always feel free to reach out with any questions and or opportunities to work together. So thank you.
Very good. Thank you so much, Amy.
Keep up the good work.
Great. Well, next on the agenda is the dairy RFP. So we'll ask Clara to give us an update.
Yes, so the dairy RFP closed a couple weeks ago. Unfortunately, once again, we had no respondents to our RFP process. So I'm a little unsure where to go from here. I think there are probably a lot of different reasons that we didn't see respondents. Probably biggest of all would be cost. So I don't know if we just wait a little bit or how you guys want to move forward, but the door remains open for developers to reach out. The information stays available. I've stayed in contact with a couple engineering firms who are interested in working with a developer should one come along. So there are still, avenues open out there for developers to reach out, but that was the outcome of this last round, so.
Did we have any people even calling, asking any questions on it?
The one question that we did receive was reported to you guys. It was the question about the train activity on the site. And that's really the only question that was received.
How do we get a better handle on why it's not marketable? I mean, specifically. I mean, do we need to reach out to like top developers and just, I get it, maybe marginal compared to other communities, but why exactly? Average salary? Are they making some decision on demographics? Is it, how do we go about that?
Because the location is good.
They say location, location, location.
Any ideas? I don't know.
Well,
Good reason I'm not a developer.
Didn't we ask some specific questions and, of some developers about
Well,
how it looked?
we had developers review. I mean,
Yeah.
this time around, we hired someone to help us do this RFP to help answer some of those questions. I mean, they provided us what they could, and I felt like the support we received from them was good. So yeah, I don't know. We can continue to try to ask questions about why the responses didn't come in, but I don't know that there's going to be one answer necessarily. I think it's probably a multitude of things.
There's some overall marketability though that's killing us. I wonder what that is.
Has it? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Has it been tried, or is it feasible to just call up a development company and say, "Hey, we've got this project. Could you give us your opinion on it?" I mean, say, "Hey, why would you or would you not want this project, and what might we change, or what are we seeing?" I mean, talk to somebody who does it all the time, and they might say, "Oh yeah, well, there's this," and that's what I would do.
I was going to say, because I think if it's like maybe if, as you say, if we make it more personal and actually go and try and sell it, as you say, at least if we, because if you look around, and see, I can't remember, there's one, like, for example, there's, there was in Bemidji, there's that kind of apartment complex that's on the lake, and that's a Fargo company that built that. And it's like maybe we have to kind of, and that's maybe each and every one of us can try and find a developer like that, and then we could write a more personal letter to sort of say, we invite you to do this, and as you say, ask for that feedback. Why, if you're not interested, can you tell us, like, from a site perspective, why, even if you're not interested in developing in Fergus Falls,
Yeah.
is what's wrong with the site?
Yeah.
Or what's wrong with the community that makes you not want to even consider it?
I think so. Who was the gal that was here before back in November? I just have a couple notes left over, but we asked her specifically kind of some detractors, and she was talking about maybe too large. So I think we talked about, could we make it smaller, whatever, take pieces. I think we had that discussion. We were open to it, whatever.
Yep.
But then overall, I think it's something about the fact that, that the construction costs would be just the size of the metro area, but the revenue would not be there. So it's overall marketability, I think.
Yep.
We could
Kim, that was our
reaffirm it.
consultant, Kim from
Kim, yeah,
WSP.
Kim.
Yep.
I mean, a guy maybe to ask would be the gentleman who built on the other side of the river. similar property, similar building, and from what I understand, he has a waiting list a mile long to get into that facility. You know, I mean, why didn't they come forward? What was it that they did not, you know, or if they're just not in the market at the moment? You know, I mean, because that would be a prime person, you would think, because, like I said, he's got a waiting list a mile long to get in there. And it would be a similar property on the other side of the river.
Gary was sent the information. I believe Andrew talked to him about it specifically,
Okay.
but we did not receive feedback from him.
So to just sum up what we've kind of discussed, the groups kind of sounds like we want to know some more
We want to do some
specifics
like
on
very
barriers.
targeted outreach.
So is it fair to say that we're asking Clara or city staff to potentially reach out to Gary and just say, hey, what were some of the barriers to this that you would see from your lens? And also maybe 2 others, or asking Kim for a little more information if she received any feedback about it or has any contacts that she could reach out to ask some more questions.
Yeah, and she's indicated that she would, you know, help us continue with some follow-up. She's been,
Okay.
I mean, she's been reaching out throughout the process to see if anything is coming in. She herself was not listed anywhere on
Yeah.
the information, so she wouldn't have received any contacts, but she's willing to help talk it up and explain it to developers.
Well, and like Anthony mentioned too, that, I could certainly reach out to a developer, I just don't know any. So if you could put a list together of,
We have the list of who we sent the information
Okay.
to. I mean, we can try that again, or
Yeah, I mean, I'd be happy to make a couple of calls and just ask people. So if you could, I don't know if you could send that list out to us or,
Allocate a couple to each of us.
yeah, just assign us each a few.
Yeah, make a phone call.
My only concern is that that's not a super formalized process. And what we're asking and what we're gonna get back.
I don't know if it necessarily needs to be. I mean, like, I don't pretend like I know anything when I would just say, hey, I'd like to learn, I'd like to get your perspective on this project. I guess if we want to come up with a list of questions to ask, or just bullet points to hit, that might be helpful, but I'd say we just call up, so, I'm really interested in seeing this project go forward, and I'm just, from your trained eye, I'm just wondering, what feedback you might have for it. That's where I'd start.
Because we don't have any feedback, so
Yeah.
we have a void at this point in time. Or we could write a more personal letter. I don't know if it went out with just some sort of like cover letter.
Well, see, you do a personal letter, sometimes it just automatically
I know.
gets file 13. You get somebody on the phone, then they might be a little bit easier to say. It's pretty hard for them to be as a business, they don't want to be rude and hang up on you because they may turn around and say, oh, they got some other land I want. Oh, no, hang on, you hung up on me.
local developers that we have rapport with got more individualized outreach. Hey, we want you to know about this. We know you've done similar projects. Are you interested? Developers that we don't have a relationship with that we got through our WSB contact was a little bit more just of a blanket outreach. Here's the information. Please let us know if you have questions, sort of thing. So it kind of depended on if we already had a relationship to begin
I'm
with.
just wondering if there's any way to target the developers who literally are like the gentleman on the other side of the street, who like the riverfront properties, because a lot of developers, when they see riverfront, they see, I got to deal with the DNR, the increased costs, the taxes and everything else. But then if you run across a developer like the one on the other side of the river, who
Being there,
particularly, if there are some developers who more specialize in the riverfront ones, to ask them, what would be something that's stopping you from being interested?
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't mind calling, but I think even Clara could call him. You're talking about Gary Epic, maybe. They've done some stuff in larger towns. They've also done smaller towns, and that's what we want, comparative to us. And then maybe one other developer that's done one in a similar town. Detroit Lakes is small, they've done it. find who did that and what's the difference. There's some economic indicator thing that's changing it, because there's smaller towns than us that have done this, to some extent.
Have we gotten Kevin Bartram's take on it?
Yeah, he's looked at both RFPs. He's the developer that I've talked to probably the most about it, because he's the one that we work with the most.
And have you asked him, why do you think this isn't going?
Well, I haven't used those words exactly because it's been before the RFPs have gone out, and we've just asked, from a developer perspective, what are you seeing when you look at this? Are there any red flags? And both times he said, nope, looks good to me. So
Well, if you've got a good rapport with him, maybe just ask him. Say, what are your give me your honest opinion. Why do you think this isn't getting snapped up? That's a good.
Do we
place to
know
start.
exactly how many people did it go to?
I believe the list that I had was close to 50, and then it was put out on the American Planning Association website as an open call. Same thing with the League of Minnesota Cities. And the League of Minnesota Cities one, I know, was seen by at least one engineering firm who has reached out about it.
Okay, so in summary, to kind of reiterate and summarize what we talked about, we're asking Clara to contact Gary, who has done the riverfront property across the river, and ask what he sees as barriers to the dairy or things that may be helpful. And the same with Kevin Bartram, kind of asking similar questions. And then creating a short list of some developers who've done some small towns, who may have done some similar things that we're aware of, that
Maybe even if
a couple other folks could call.
even if we just we don't make the call necessarily today, but we assemble a short list, as you say, as we travel around the different communities. If we see something, then maybe we just capture the name, take a photograph of who it was developed by,
Yeah.
and then at least then we can come back and we can see whether we've even contacted them.
And, maybe just take that list that we sent it to and break it up, divide it among the commissioners, and, just so that we're not double calling people or anything like that, and just, if people want to call them, they can. If they don't want to, they don't have to, and, but I think we could probably get a lot of good information just having a conversation with them.
Okay, so again, asking Clara to provide that information of a short list and assigning folks to
Sure.
that, and whether they go forward or not is okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
Does that sound accurate?
I think that sounds great.
Okay. And then on the other end of that, once you gather some of the information that we're looking for, stick that in an email back to Clara.
Sure.
Okay.
Written
So it
is
can kinda
best
be
because then we can
assembled.
kind of
Yeah.
keep it as a file,
Yeah.
maybe.
Okay.
And then do some sort of like an FAQ or something if we try to do this again. So.
If the city will pay for my kind of expenses, I'll go to the Bemidji and go and take a photograph of that sign. Spend a couple of nights up there.
We can discuss that.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions or comments about the dairy?
No, thank you,
No?
Clara, for all your work on it.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
I'm
Update.
sorry it didn't work out yet again, but
We'll
we'll
get
keep
there.
trying.
We'll get it.
Yep.
But
I
in the
should
meanwhile,
say-
if it's still out there open where people can call in on it.
It's still on the Port Authority website, or the city
It's
website.
still up there. I mean, the dates say it's closed, but when this engineering firm in particular reached out, and they that's one of the questions they asked, is the end date, is there flexibility? And I said, let us know what you might need from us, and we can try to be as flexible as possible. I reached out to them again after it closed, and I said the door's still open, so the dates might say that, but the information is still available.
Well, is there any way, we're not going to meet again for another month. Is there any way just to extend the end date out for another month on the websites or whatever, just so they don't feel like it's dead in the water?
Or just take the end date off.
Yeah, just take the end date off for now.
On the city website, yes. Through APA, we would need to pay for it again. So if we're willing to do that, we certainly can. And that would, I would need to work with Kim again on that because the city doesn't have an APA membership currently. We used WSB's membership.
I think maybe just leave it on the city website because that's free, and then
Yeah.
League of
if
Minnesota
we do
Cities
some
is free,
research and we
too.
get some feedback, we might then be able to tweak the RFP or answer
And I think if we
something
can
before we
have some
pay.
good conversation with some of these individuals and firms, I think that's gonna get us more than paying for that kind of an
Yeah.
advertisement would.
Okay, I can do that. Okay, so I'm gonna remove the dates on the website. I am going to split up the list of contacts that we had. I will reach out directly to Gary Thompson and Kevin Bartram for feedback from them. Did I capture all of that?
That's
think
the
so.
three
That sounds
things.
good.
I think that's
Yeah,
good.
thank you.
All right.
Okay, any other questions, comments? All right, if not, we will adjourn.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.